Today, you'll learn must-know business English vocabulary to sound professional and sound advanced at work. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started. First, in this masterclass, you'll learn 14 phrases you can start using today to sound like a professional. Number 1, feel free to ask me anything. Now notice you're learning a complete phrase, so pay attention to all the words. The prepositions, the articles, the sentence structure matters. So notice here we have feel free plus infinitive. The infinitive is of course to plus the base verb. Feel free to ask me anything. This is used as a polite, open-ended invitation. I'm inviting you to ask me whatever you'd like. Remember, you can change that verb. I could say, feel free to send me the report when it's ready. This sounds polite and professional. And remember, it's an open invitation. You're not required to do this, it's an option. If you say, send me the report when it's done, this is the imperative, and it's direct and also authoritative. So to sound polite and professional and to give you an open invitation, I can say, feel free to download the free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description, and this is a real example because I summarized everything from this lesson in the free lesson PDF. Feel free to download it. Number 2, I look forward to hearing your thoughts. So your colleague could say to you, feel free to send me the report when it's done. And then when it's done, you can send it to your colleague and say, here you go. I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Notice our sentence structure. Look forward to plus gerund, your verb in ing. I look forward to hearing. Don't make this mistake. Make sure you have the gerund. And this is a polite way to show your interest. So in this case, your interest in hearing the person's thoughts, their ideas, their opinions, their feedback. You could say, I look forward to meeting, our verb in ing. I look forward to meeting you tomorrow. Now with this structure, you can also use a noun. I look forward to our meeting. That's the noun form. I look forward to our meeting tomorrow. What about you? Are you looking forward to my next lesson? If you are, put yes, yes, yes to show your interest. Show your enthusiasm, put yes, yes, yes in the comments. Number 3, here's my take on it. One's take on something is one's opinion on something. So my take on it is simply my opinion on it. For example, I just read the consultant's recommendations. Here's my take on them. Them because recommendations is plural. Now, when I want to share my opinion, my take, I can simply use an opinion word. I think she raised some valid points. Now, I can use this as a question. What's your take on the report, on the recommendations? Number 4, from my perspective. Now, this is the same as in my opinion, but notice that preposition difference. From my perspective, in my opinion, so I see a lot of mistakes when students try to use this. If someone asks you your opinion, what's your take on it? You can use this to start. From my perspective, I think the consultant's recommendations aren't practical. So here you can add on I think, an opinion word, even though you use from my perspective, but it's optional. And after you share your opinion, you can invite the other person to provide their opinion. What about you? What's your perspective? Number 5, can you help me understand? This is a polite way to ask for clarification or an explanation. Your colleague could say, from my perspective, the consultant's recommendations aren't practical. You could comment on this and say, I see, interesting, oh really? And then you can add on this expression. Can you help me understand your perspective, your opinion? Can you help me understand? This is a great expression if you want an explanation without sounding very direct or authoritative or angry. If someone says, I don't think we can meet the deadline, you can say, can you help me understand why? Number 6, I'll get back to you with that information. This is a great one because someone might ask you a question or to provide information and you don't have that information. You don't know the answer. Instead of saying, I don't know, you can say, I'll get back to you with that information. You can provide a time reference if you'd like. I'll get back to you by the end of the day. So you just gave yourself a deadline. You could say, I'll get back to you in an hour, or I'll get back to you ASAP. What does ASAP mean? This is a very common acronym. Put it in the comments. ASAP, what's the acronym? Put it in the comments. Number 7, can you fill me in? This is a great one. It's a casual way to ask for an update or a summary. You could say to your colleague, I was on another call this morning. Can you fill me in on the staff meeting? Notice here, when I specify the something, the staff meeting, you have to use the additional preposition on. Can you fill me in on the staff meeting? This is often used by one person to request another person provide information to someone else. For example, your boss could say to you, hey Danica, can you fill Raphael in? And then if you want to specify the something, you need that preposition on the new filing system. Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson. Number 8, which one would you like me to prioritize? You can use this to clarify which task should be done first, which one you should prioritize when there are multiple tasks. So you can use this with 2 tasks or more than 2 as well. So if you have multiple tasks, you can go to your boss and say, Sarah asked for help on the report and I have to finish the presentation. Which one would you like me to prioritize? So now instead of feeling overwhelmed, you know exactly which task to focus on, to prioritize. You can use this even just to get advice from someone you trust. I could say to you, from your perspective, which one should I prioritize? So you're not my boss, you're not responsible for assigning me tasks, but I trust you to provide me with valuable feedback. Which one should I prioritize from your perspective? Number 9, I trust you have everything you need. The word trust is used a lot in a business context. This is used to express overall confidence in someone and their abilities. So you might come to me and say, Jennifer, I feel a little nervous. This is my first time giving a presentation. And I can let you know that I have confidence in you and your abilities, and I can say, I trust you. Or I can add on to this and I can say, I trust you can handle this. So the statement is, you can handle this. Handle means you have the ability to do it. You can handle this. Now, if I add I trust, it's adding certainty. I'm certain. I know. I trust you can handle this. Number 10, what can we learn from this? Such a powerful question. You can use this to encourage reflection and analysis after a situation, generally a negative situation. So if something negative happened, I didn't get the promotion. You can say, what can I learn from this? Or I failed my What can I learn from this? So instead of being upset, angry, mad, now you're thinking about solutions. You're thinking about what you can do differently. This is a great expression to use when you're working with a team. So again, maybe something bad happened. We lost the client. What can we learn from this? And then you can start brainstorming things you can do differently so it doesn't happen again. Now, to change the sentence structure, you could also say, what can this teach us? So notice, you can learn something from someone or something, a situation, but also something, the situation, can teach you something. Number 11, I'm happy to address that. So notice the sentence structure. We have our verb to be, I am happy, our adjective. So you need to conjugate the verb to be. And then you have the infinitive. I'm happy to address that. And this is used to show a willingness to do something. So when your boss asks you to fill Raphael in, you can say, I'm happy to fill Raphael in. And then remember, if you specify the something, you need that extra preposition on the sales process. So you're showing your willingness to do this. This is also a great way to end a presentation or end communication. We're happy to answer any questions you have. So remember that structure, to be happy plus infinitive. Number 12, how can I support you? This is used to offer support, encouragement, assistance, but also to ask how that can be done. Your coworker could be upset and say, I'm so overwhelmed with this project. So you want to show your support. You can say, how can I support you? You can add on, how can I best support you as an intensifier? And then you can even add on your willingness and say, I'm happy to help you in any way I can. You can use this to offer assistance to someone as well. If you know your coworker is very busy, you could say, you have a lot on your plate with this presentation, which means you're very busy. How can I support you? Number 13, I value your input. This is to acknowledge the importance of someone's opinion or ideas. So let's use this right now. How can I make my lessons better? How can I make this lesson better? Or how can I make my lessons overall better? Please share your thoughts in the comments. I value your input. And this isn't just an example, it's 100% true. I really value your input. I truly value your input. So please, if there's anything I can do to improve these lessons for you, I want you to love these lessons. So please put your comments below because I truly value your input. Number 14, I appreciate your hard work on this. Everyone loves to be appreciated, so you can use this to show gratitude, appreciation for someone's work. You can start by complimenting someone. The report looks fantastic. And then add on, I appreciate your hard work on this. Adding that on will make that person feel really valued. Or maybe your friend is planning a party for you and you can say, the menu looks amazing. I appreciate all your hard work on this. You can add all your hard work to intensify it. Great job expanding your vocabulary with those phrases. But to sound professional, you also need to remove phrases from your vocabulary because they're unnatural or incorrect. So now you'll learn 12 phrases you should stop saying. But don't worry, because I'll share the replacement phrases, so you'll also learn 12 phrases you should start saying. Number 1, ought. Ought. You should remove this word because it's outdated. Native speakers don't use it in modern English. It sounds too formal and it sounds stiff. Now, my grandmother would say to me, you ought to be nicer to your brother. When I hear the word ought, I think of my grandmother. I don't think of modern English. You ought to be nice to your brother. Of course, this is grammatically correct. But now in modern English, native speakers replace this with should. You should be nicer to your brother. You should bring an umbrella. It looks like rain. You should stay home and prepare for your job interview. So notice should is your modal verb and you use modal plus base verb. And of course, this modal verb is used to express obligation, advice, or expectation. So I could say to you, you should subscribe to JForrest English. Would you say that to your friends? You should subscribe. You should definitely subscribe. If you'd say that, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. Number 2, works. Works. Do you know why you should remove this from your vocabulary? It's because it's grammatically incorrect as a noun. And that's the important thing, because of course you can say she works at the bank. This is the verb to work conjugated in the present simple with your subject she. She works at the bank. But I hear my students say, I have a lot of works tonight. This is grammatically incorrect. The same with I have a lot of homeworks tonight. The word homework includes work, and these are nouns. Now, work is a collective noun, which means it's always singular. So to be grammatically correct, you need to say, I have a lot of work tonight. I have so much homework to do. Now, keep in mind, work, when it means tasks, assignments, or obligations, is a collective noun. It's always singular. But we also use works with artistic intellectual creations. Now, in this case, it's a regular noun, so it can be singular or plural. For example, his works of art are displayed in galleries around the world. They may not say of art, it's implied. So if you ever see that and you're confused, that's the reason why. It's acceptable with artistic or intellectual creations. But you could also say his work is displayed in galleries around the world. Number 3, irregardless. Irregardless. Have you heard native speakers say this? Because native speakers commonly make this mistake. But the word irregardless does not exist in the English language. All you need to say is regardless, regardless. Remember, I advise that you should subscribe to JForrest English. I can add regardless of your level. Now notice if I include the noun your level, I need to include of, regardless of your level. You can also use this at the beginning of a sentence. Your friend might say, but I'm only a beginner. And you can say, regardless, you should subscribe to JForrest English. So again, put that's right, if you want to advise your friend to do that. Now, regardless, this means not being affected by something. So your level shouldn't affect you. It's the same as despite. So you can equally say, despite your level, you should subscribe to JForrest English. Number 4, United States. Why would you remove this from your vocabulary? Because my students say, I'd love to visit United States. This is incorrect. Do you know why? It's because you need the article the. I'd love to visit the United States. Or you could say he's the president of the United States. How about this sentence? The United States president is visiting us next week. In this case, United States is used as an adjective. The president is visiting us. The belongs to the noun president. United States functions as an adjective. Remember that proper nouns such as cities or countries don't require articles. The United States is an exception. I hear this mistake so often. Remember, the United States. Number 5, rock. You may know that I love saying you rock, which is another way of saying you're amazing, great, or awesome. Native speakers like myself love saying this. The problem is that in the comment section of my YouTube videos, I see so many comments where students say you are rock. This is incorrect. It is not to be rock. That's not the sentence structure. The sentence structure is to rock. So it's using rock as a verb. So if I say you rock, that is in the present simple. If I say you rocked the presentation, this is in the past simple, which means you did a great job on the presentation. How about this one? You're going to rock the interview. This is the infinitive, to rock. Now, it is possible to use the verb to be. I might say, you're rocking it. You're rocking it. But this verb to be is used in the present continuous tense. It's the same as saying you're doing a great job right now. So remember, to be rock is grammatically incorrect. The sentence structure is to rock. So absolutely, keep this in your vocabulary, but make sure you say you rock, you rock. Number 6, ain't. You may already know that this is slang, not standard English, but you should understand it because natives commonly use it. But I think you shouldn't use it because there's a high risk it will sound inappropriate because yes, natives use it. You'll hear it in music. Taylor Swift has a song called Ain't Nothing But You. And in a separate song called Blank Space, she repeats the line, ain't it funny, a lot. In this case, ain't means isn't. Native speakers also use it in casual conversation. I ain't got time. Here, ain't got means don't have. Native speakers also use this in certain expressions that just sound correct using the word ain't, like the expression, ain't it something? Ain't it something? It's snowing in July. Ain't it something? In this case, ain't means isn't. So yes, you should understand it because natives commonly use it. But again, I recommend that you shouldn't use it because there's a high risk it will sound inappropriate. Number 7, fine. I'm fine. You should remove this because it's often used with a negative, not a neutral meaning. So students learn that fine is bad, fine, good, so it's more neutral. But that's not how natives actually use it. For example, if you're in a restaurant and let's say you order salmon and the server comes and asks you, how's the salmon? And you reply back and say, it's fine. This means that I don't think it's very good. That's how a native speaker uses this word. It actually means bad in this context. Now, also, same with if your friend, your coworker, your husband or wife comes up to you and says, is everything okay? You look upset. And you reply back and say, I'm fine, or everything's fine. Most of the time, this actually means I'm upset, I'm just not telling you. There is one time where native speakers use fine in this neutral context that the word implies. If you're at a grocery store or if you're dealing with a service provider and they say, how are you? You should reply with fine, thanks, and you? So we use this as a social norm to be polite. We generally use this when we don't actually care about the answer. So when the person is scanning my groceries, they don't actually care how I'm doing. They're just being polite. So we just reply with, I'm fine. So if you're in a restaurant and they ask you, how's the salmon? And you like the salmon, you should say it's good, it's great, or delicious. Now, in a social context, if someone says, is everything okay? You look upset. Well, you can say, I'm just tired, that's all, which means you're not upset. Or you can admit you're upset. I asked you to get groceries and you forgot. Or you can say, no, everything's good, everything's great. But in the context of going to a grocery store or dealing with service providers and they ask you, how are you? Absolutely just say fine, thanks, and you. That's the standard reply. Number 8, needn't. You should remove this because it's outdated, it sounds too formal, and it sounds stiff. It doesn't sound natural. You needn't finish the report tonight. Yes, this is grammatically correct, but it does not sound like something native speakers say. You don't need to finish the report tonight. Or you don't have to finish the report tonight. That's what native speakers would say. Need is for necessity and have is for obligation, but they're often interchangeable. You don't need to buy groceries. We already have everything for dinner. So this sounds like there's a lack of necessity. You don't have to work tomorrow, it's a holiday. So this is a lack of obligation. But again, a lot of the time, you can use one or the other and there's no difference. Number 9, must. Now, you should remove this from your vocabulary if you're using it just to say need or have to, because native speakers use must when there's a strong obligation. There's a rule to follow, a formal rule to follow. I hear students use must too often. They use it for general obligations, but again, natives prefer need to or have to for general obligation. If my husband said to me, you must get groceries, I would be like, wow. This is a very serious request because he used the word must. But if he says you need to, you have to get groceries, this is a normal request and this is the request I expect as a native speaker. Must, again, is used for formal rules. So think of government or even workplace requirements. You must bring your passport to the airport. This is a formal obligation. You need to, you have to pack warm clothes. This is a general or normal obligation. You must wear proper footwear in the kitchen. This is a formal obligation from your workplace, most likely. You need to, have to buy new shoes for the party. This is a general, normal obligation. Number 10, query. This is not commonly used by natives as a replacement to question. I have a query about the project. A native speaker would not say that. It sounds unnatural. A native speaker would say, I have a question about the project. And if you want to use an alternative word, you could say, I have a concern, I have a doubt, or I have an issue, perhaps. But keep in mind that it is commonly and naturally used with computers, databases, and software development. In this case, it means request for information. For example, I need to write a query to pull the data from the server. But remember, you would say, I need to ask a question about the data you pulled from the server. So do not use query to mean question. Number 11, participate. You should stop using this grammatically incorrectly and with the wrong meaning. So first of all, for grammar, you participate in something. I hear a lot of students say, I participated the conference. That doesn't work. You need that preposition in. I participated in the conference. Now it's correct. But keep in mind that participate does not mean attend. Attend is focus on being present. Participate, the focus is on actively contributing. So if you say, I participated in the conference, I would ask you, how so? Were you a speaker? Were you a moderator? Because you were actively involved. But maybe you just wanted to say, I attended the conference. You were present at the conference. But you can absolutely participate in this YouTube class by leaving a comment using your new vocabulary, and you absolutely should. Number 12, funny. The mistake I hear is that funny is commonly used when fun is the correct choice. Remember, funny produces laughter, but fun produces enjoyment or entertainment. Students say to me, the game was funny. And I reply and say, oh really? Why? Why did it make you laugh? But they didn't want to say funny, they meant to say the game was fun, which means enjoyable. And then I would reply back and say, oh, that's great, I'm so glad. Now you can absolutely say the party was funny, I laughed a lot. Or the party was fun, I had a great time. Of course, in business, you need to confidently introduce yourself. So now you'll learn how to introduce yourself both casually and professionally. Let's begin with casual conversations, maybe at parties, or you're meeting your neighbors, or you're traveling. I'll share a template called the START method. START. The S stands for start. So how do you start? Of course, with a greeting and your name. That's easy, right? I would say, hi, my name's Jennifer. My name is, my name's. Or I would say, hi, I'm Jennifer. I use both interchangeably. You probably know other greetings. At the most formal would simply be hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, hello all, hello everyone. A little less formal, more casual, hi there. We add there when you don't know the person's name or if you're addressing a group. And the most casual would be hey. Now, in a professional situation, you could say hello everyone, but then the same thing. My name's Jennifer. Now, in this case, you might add your last name in a more professional situation. My name's JForrest. But in casual situations, I would say, hi, I'm Jennifer. Now notice, my name has more than one syllable. In North America, people love reducing names to just one syllable or using a nickname. So if I do reduce my name or use a nickname, I could add, you can call me Jen. Or I go by Jen. So someone might ask you, or you can ask someone else, what do you go by? My name's Jennifer. What do you go by? What name do you go by? Or to sound a little more formal, you can say, what name do you prefer? And then I could say, oh, you can call me Jen, I go by Jen, or I go by Jennifer. These are the questions you might be asked, but they're also questions that you can ask others to get to know them. An important point in American English, don't say I'm called Jennifer. Yes, you can say you can call me Jen to introduce a nickname or a shortened name, but don't say I'm called Jen, I'm called Jennifer. My name is, or I'm in American English. Now back to our START model. We know what the S means. Let's move on to T, territory. So we'll talk about geography, place. You can say I'm originally from, and then the city or country. I've been living in city or country for number of years. So we'll put this together. I'm originally from Winnipeg, but I've been living in Ottawa for over 10 years. This is true. Now notice I said I've been living. You can also use the present perfect and say I've lived. In this case, with the verb live, there is no difference. Let's review some questions. Where are you from? Are you originally from, and then the current location you're in? How long have you lived in, and then the current location? Or you could say, have you always lived in? Have you always lived in Ottawa? Now in our START method, let's talk about A, which is activity. Remember, you're in a casual situation, maybe a party or you're meeting your neighbors. So you can talk about work or hobbies or both. First, let's review work. I'm a graphic designer. Don't forget that article. I'm a graphic designer. I work for a small company. I work in graphic design. So here, in and then the area. Graphic design is the area. You could add on, I specialize in. You need that preposition in and then a gerund. I specialize in creating logos for cosmetic brands. You could also say, I create logos for cosmetic brands. Now the questions you might be asked or that you can ask someone, what do you do? Students often stare at me when I say, what do you do? They don't know what I'm asking. This is, what do you do for a living? For a living, but most of the time we just say, what do you do? This is saying, what is your job? But that is not how a native speaker would communicate that. What do you do? What do you do for a living? Someone could also ask you, what type of work do you do? Or what line of work are you in? They're asking your area of focus. What line of work? I'm a graphic designer or I'm in graphic design. Now, if you're not currently employed, you can still answer this. If someone asks you, what do you do or what do you do for a living? You can say, I'm a student. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I'm a homemaker. I'm retired. I'm a graphic designer, but I'm currently between jobs. This means you are unemployed. You could also say, I'm currently exploring career opportunities, again, unemployed, or I'm in a career transition, again, unemployed. It's not common for someone to say in social situations, I'm unemployed or I'm jobless, because that has a very negative sound to it. So we have alternative ways to say the same thing. Let's talk about hobbies. You could say, I'm an avid cyclist. And avid means you cycle a lot. You're passionate about it. I love reading. I spend all my free time, gerund verb, drawing. I'm learning how to play guitar. I just got into yoga. To be into an activity means you enjoy doing that activity. As for the questions, what are your hobbies? What hobbies do you enjoy? How do you spend your free time? What are you into? So again, those are questions you might be asked or that you can ask whoever you're talking to. Now, this is just the point. I'm an avid cyclist. You might want to expand on this. So provide one piece of information. I spend every weekend cycling in the mountains. I'm currently training for a race. Or you can say, I've been cycling for 5 years. So this just gives more information that you can have a conversation on. Instead of a further point, you might provide the reason. I love reading. It's a great way to relax after a busy day designing, gerund verb, designing logos. Or it's so nice to disconnect from screens for a few minutes every day. Let's review our start method again. We are on R. This is your reason for attending wherever you are. The party, the wedding, the anniversary, the dinner, the neighborhood book club, wherever you are, your reason for being there. So let's say you're at an engagement party. A couple is celebrating the fact they're getting married. An engagement party. You might say, I went to school with a happy couple. This is how you know the couple and it's your reason for attending. Or you can say, I work with Rebecca. Steve's my neighbor. Or you could say, I'm here with a friend. So you don't actually know the people. I'm here with a friend. She used to work with Christine. So you might provide how your friend knows the people who are hosting the party or event. As for the questions, how do you know? And then the person or people. How long have you known the person or people? Do you work with Rebecca? So if everyone there works with Rebecca, it might be assumed, or it's just a good guess. Do you work with Rebecca? Or just a very general, what brings you here? This is a polite way of saying, why are you here? Which sounds odd and direct. What brings you here? Now let's review the T in our start method, which stands for turn. This is very important. It means it's the other person's turn to talk. How do you do that? The best way is to end by asking a question. So you could use any of the questions we've already reviewed. So how do you know the person or people? Now, if you are at a wedding-related event, you could ask someone, have you bought your dress for the wedding yet? Because you know you're going to the wedding in a future date. Have you bought your dress? So you can ask questions related to the specific event. Or if the person you're talking to has a great relationship with the host, you might ask, do you have any funny stories about Christine? Or have you met Christine's father? Or are you from? And then you can ask about the current location. What do you do? How do you spend your free time? So you can ask any of the questions we've already reviewed. So now let's put our entire answer from the start method together for our introduction. Hi, I'm Jennifer. I'm originally from Winnipeg, but I've been living in Ottawa for over 10 years. I'm an English teacher and I run a YouTube channel and work directly with students in an online training program. In my free time, I love being in nature and going for hikes, walks, and bike rides. It's a nice contrast from spending all day at the computer. Christine and I met in university and we've kept in touch ever since. What about you? How do you know Christine? Keep in mind that this long introduction is probably not the most common in social situations. It's probably more common to share one point and then ask a question, share another point, ask a question, and have more of a dialogue. But let's review a professional situation where it is more common to share a monologue when you introduce yourself, let's say at a meeting, a networking event, or a conference. We'll use the impact framework. The I stands for identity. Who are you? So the same information you already learned. Hi, I'm Jennifer. I'm a graphic designer with over 15 years of experience. So notice with number of years of experience. I specialize in, gerund verb, creating stunning logos for cosmetic companies. Now, in a professional situation, it's assumed you will also describe your work when you introduce yourself. That is part of your identity in a professional situation. Now let's move on to M, which stands for motivation. What motivates you to do the work that you do? Why do you do it? So you could say, I've always had a passion for art. And I've been drawing since I was a kid. So this gives you as the audience, as my coworkers, more information about who I am and why I love graphic design. Now, P stands for projects. What are you currently working on? This is very important in a professional situation. I'm currently designing a new logo for one of the world's largest cosmetic brands. The A stands for aspirations. What are your aspirations, your goals for either attending this event, working on this project, or in general in the future as it relates to your career? Because again, this is a professional introduction. You can start with my goal. My goal is, and then your infinitive, to connect with other graphic designers who can both motivate and challenge me. Or you could say, my goal is to learn how I can use AI to save time and improve the quality of my designs. Maybe you would share this at a meeting that has to do with AI, or a training, or a conference, a networking event. Now the final letter, CT, this stands for connect. Connect. One word, connect. So here you can either share how people can connect with you if you're at a networking event, a conference, a training, or you can express your interest in connecting with others. For example, you can connect with me on my website, jfdesigns.com. Or you can say, you can find a portfolio of my work on social media at JF Designs. Here's a phrase you need to know. I'm looking forward to, and then a gerund verb. I'm looking forward to connecting with everyone. Or you could say, I'm looking forward to something, the presentation on AI. So the expression is to look forward to. So your verb is look. That's what you need to conjugate. Following this, you need a gerund verb or a noun. I conjugated my verb in the present continuous. I'm looking forward to. This is more casual. You can also say, I look forward to the presentation on AI. Here is the present simple, which sounds more formal, but both are commonly used. Now remember, here we're connecting. So you might want to ask someone a question to connect with them more. What about you? What brings you here? Remember that? What brings you here? The same question you can use in social situations. What did you come here to learn if you're at a training or a conference or seminar? Or of course, you can ask a question related to their career. How long have you been a graphic designer? Or what area of graphic design do you focus on or specialize in? Both of those are common. Notice that preposition change. So now let's put all the information from the impact method together. Hi, I'm Jennifer. I'm a graphic designer with over 15 years of experience. I specialize in creating stunning logos for cosmetic companies. I've always had a passion for art and I've been drawing since I was a kid. I'm currently designing a new logo for one of the world's largest cosmetic companies. My goal is to connect with other graphic designers who can both motivate and challenge me. I look forward to connecting with everyone. Native speakers love using idioms. So to understand natives and to sound natural, you need to learn them too. Now you'll learn the 22 most common business English idioms. Our first idiom, to see eye to eye. To see eye to eye. This means that you agree with someone or that there is agreement. You could say, it's important that the team sees eye to eye on the project's objectives. You can commonly use this in the negative to say, we didn't see eye to eye on the project objectives, which means you didn't agree.
We don't see eye to eye.
Our next idiom is very similar. It's to be on the same page. This is when you have a shared understanding or agreement. So to see eye to eye is always with agreement, but to be on the same page is when you have the same understanding. So similar, but slightly different. For example, we need to be on the same page regarding the timeline for the project. We commonly use this with get. We need to get the team on the same page. So this sounds like right now the team isn't on the same page, and get is used for that transition. So we need to get the team on the same page. Go from not a general understanding to a general understanding.
Are we on the same page?
I love this one. To hit the nail on the head. This means that you describe exactly what is causing a problem or a situation. So simply, your description is 100% correct. For example, you really hit the nail on the head with your analysis. Your analysis was 100% correct. You could also use the something as the subject and say your analysis hit the nail on the head. Your analysis was 100% correct. Our next idiom, to have a lot on one's plate. This likely describes you, it describes everyone.
I have a lot on my plate.
This means you're very busy or you have a lot of tasks to complete. You might say, I can't take on any more projects right now. I already have a lot on my plate. You could also say, I have a lot on my plate with the conference. So you could specify a specific task and then say you have many individual tasks for that one item, the conference. You have many different things to do. I have a lot on my plate with the conference. To get the hang of, this will make you sound very natural. This is when you become skilled with or familiar with something. You could say, it took a while, but I finally got the hang of the new software. So now you're familiar with the software. You're skilled at using the software. Or you could say, using idioms was tricky at first, but I got the hang of them. And hopefully my videos are helping you do that. So put in the comments, I got the hang of idioms. I got the hang of idioms. Because I'm sure you'll get the hang of them very quickly. Next, to cut corners. This is a negative one. When you cut corners, it means you do something in the quickest or the easiest way possible, but you sacrifice quality. Now, hopefully your company says we can't afford to cut corners with our safety measures. And that means your company is going to do things properly, even if it takes longer, even if it's more expensive, because they're not willing to sacrifice quality. And if your company doesn't say that, they'll get a bad reputation, and someone might say, don't use that company, they cut corners, which is not a positive thing.
You can't cut corners in life.
A ballpark figure. This is a sports reference, but it's extremely common in business. You need to know this one. A ballpark figure is an approximation or a rough estimate. So someone might ask, can you give me a ballpark figure for the budget of the project? They're asking you for an estimate. So not a specific number, just an estimate. The person could reply and say, we don't have the budget yet, but if I had to ballpark it, if I had to give you a ballpark figure, if I had to ballpark it, that's what a native speaker would say, if I had to ballpark it, I'd say $100,000. So that's my estimate of the budget, but it's not the exact number. It's just a ballpark figure.
Take a guess, ballpark figure.
Our next one, maybe you know this, to be in the same boat. Have you heard this one? This is when you're in the same difficult situation as someone else. We're in the same boat when it comes to global warming. We're all in the same situation. It doesn't matter if it happens in India or Africa or New York, it affects us all. We're all in the same boat.
I'm in the same boat.
Back to the drawing board. This one is frequently used. This is when you have to start a task or project again because your previous attempt failed. For example, the marketing campaign didn't work as expected, so it's back to the drawing board. To pull strings. Ooh, I love this one. This is when you use your influence to manipulate or control a situation. For example, she managed to pull some strings and get the project approved. So this sounds like the project wasn't approved, but she had influence. Maybe she knew someone on the board that was approving the project. So she used her relationship with that person to get the project approved. She pulled some strings to get the project approved. Someone might ask you, how did you get VIP tickets to Taylor Swift? And you can reply back and say, I pulled some strings. I pulled some strings. Our next idiom, to cross one's fingers. This is used to hope for good luck or a positive outcome. For example, I'm crossing my fingers that the client likes our proposal. And notice that I'm doing the gesture. We commonly do the gesture in North America when we use this expression. We also use this as a reply to say, I hope so. So someone might say, you'll do a great job on the presentation. And you can simply say, fingers crossed. But it's very common to do the gesture. Does this gesture exist in your culture? Let us know in the comments. Say yes it does or no it doesn't. I'm really curious to know. Fingers crossed. How about this idiom? To be on the ball. Do you know this one? This means that you're alert and quick to understand or respond. So this is a positive one. Your boss might say, our team needs to be on the ball to meet the tight deadline. So the team needs to be very quick, very alert. They need to be on the ball. Our next idiom, to throw in the towel. I hope you never do this. This means to give up or surrender. So if you say, English idioms are so confusing, I'm throwing in the towel, it means you're closing this video, you're unsubscribing from my channel, and you're quitting. So please don't throw in the towel.
She's throwing in the towel.
So put in the comments, I won't throw in the towel, I won't throw in the towel, because sometimes it might seem difficult, but keep at it. I know you'll get the hang of it. Number 14, to have one's hands tied. This means you're unable to take action because of external circumstances. So maybe you ask your boss for an extra day of vacation and your boss says, I'd like to help, but my hands are tied due to company policy. So the external situation or circumstance is the company policy. It forbids additional vacation days. So your boss can't do anything. Your boss's hands are tied. So to deliver bad news, a native speaker will commonly say, sorry, my hands are tied.
My hands are tied.
Next, to burn the midnight oil, something I never do. This is when you work late into the night. For example, we had to burn the midnight oil in order to meet the deadline. So I said this is something I never do, and that's because I believe that I'm more productive if I sleep for 8 hours. So I would rather sleep for 8 hours and then the next day I'll be very productive. If I burn the midnight oil, I'm going to waste an entire day because I'm not going to be productive. That's just my personal opinion. Next, to throw someone under the bus. Oh, this is a good one. This is when you blame someone else or sacrifice someone for personal gain or to avoid being blamed. So let's say two coworkers worked on a project together, but then one coworker publicly said the other coworker is the reason why the project failed, even though they made all decisions together. That coworker is going to be upset, and they can say, I can't believe she threw me under the bus at the meeting.
Sheldon threw us all under the bus.
Number 17, to be on thin ice. This is when you're in a risky or dangerous situation. So let's say your boss says to you, this is the third time you're late. You're on thin ice. That's not a good position to be because it means that you're in a risky or dangerous situation. In this case, you're at risk of losing your job. You're on thin ice. So management will say this to you to let you know that you're in trouble.
You're on thin ice.
Next, to hit a snag. This probably happens to people every single day. This is when you encounter unexpected problems, challenges, or difficulties. So let's say you're about to launch a new product and everything is going perfectly, but then we hit a snag when the supplier couldn't deliver the materials on time. But don't throw in the towel because I'm sure you can work through it. Number 19, to keep one's eyes peeled. This is when you stay alert and watchful for something specific. Your coworker could say, keep your eyes peeled for any updates on the project deadline. So your coworker is telling you to watch carefully for those updates.
Keep your eyes peeled.
Number 20, one that your boss is going to love, to cut a deal. This is when you reach an agreement. So an agreement is a positive thing. Your boss will be happy. But this usually happens after a period of negotiation. You could say, it took us a while, but we finally cut a deal.
Cut a new deal.
Number 21, to be up in the air. This is when things are uncertain, undecided, or unresolved. For example, the conference is up in the air. So it's uncertain if you're even going to have a conference or the status of it, the planning of it. Everything is uncertain, undecided, unresolved. It's up in the air. Or you could say, our plans are up in the air. Nothing has been decided.
That's up in the air.
And finally, number 22, in the works. In the works. This means in progress, so currently being developed or finalized. The conference is in the works. We're working on it. We're developing it. We're finalizing it. Our plans are in the works. So they're not up in the air anymore. They're in the works. Wow, think of everything you've learned. Now let's do something different. We'll read a business news article together. And as we read the article, you'll improve all areas of your English. Our headline, AI is not yet replacing workers in the US, researchers find. Let's talk about the placement of this word yet, because it's flexible. You can have it right here before the main verb. You can also have it at the end. And in spoken English, it more naturally comes at the end. In more formal or academic purposes, you'll see it before the main verb. Let's review these sentences. I haven't subscribed to JForrest English. That's correct on its own, but you can add yet to show that the action is still possible. And that's also why the verb tense is in the present perfect here, to show that the action is still possible. It's an ongoing timeline. Or you can say, I haven't yet subscribed to JForrest English. This is grammatically correct. It sounds more formal to me. The first one sounds like what I would expect from my students and native speakers. I haven't subscribed to JForrest English yet. Ooh, does that describe you? Or have you described? Either way, make sure you subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. So here, notice AI is not yet replacing. So in this case, it's in the present continuous. Is replacing, isn't replacing in the negative, and then isn't yet replacing to make it sound more formal or academic. Workers in the US, researchers find. Now, speaking of flexibility, you could also put this at the very beginning of the sentence and say researchers find AI is not yet replacing workers. You can use an optional researchers find that AI is not. In that case, that is optional. Now let's review the article. ChatGPT is not yet causing the massive upheaval in the US labor market that many have feared. Okay, so we have the exact same sentence structure. Is causing, our present continuous, making it negative, is not causing. In spoken English, you can form that contraction, isn't causing. And then because they're making this sound more formal, more academic, they're putting yet before the main verb. ChatGPT is not yet causing the massive upheaval in the US labor market. So the labor market represents all the people working in a specific field. And in this case, the specific field could be a country, so the US, because you can have the education labor market, the technology labor market. So those are the specific fields. But in this case, it's the country as a whole, the US labor market. So in this case, it's the labor market. Labor market is a noun, a countable noun. So the labor market, because it's a specific one. And then US gives you more information about which labor market. So US here, United States, functions as an adjective. Now let's review upheaval. This is a noun. It's a something, caused something, causing the massive upheaval. Upheaval represents change, disruption, and significant. So the word massive makes it sound stronger, but the word itself, upheaval, I imagine everything changes. Everything is different. So you can just think of what happened to your life during the pandemic. That was upheaval. So you could say the pandemic caused massive upheaval or just upheaval. You can intensify it, but the word is already intense. Upheaval in everyone's lives. Or you can say businesses are facing upheaval because of the new change, the new policy, the new technology. So you can face upheaval. So something causes upheaval, or people can face, experience, go through upheaval. But of course, remember in our article, it's not yet, meaning it still could happen. ChatGPT is not yet causing the massive upheaval in the US labor market that many have feared, that many people, so the many just represents many people, have feared. This is in the present perfect because it started in the past and it continues until now. Have feared since the chatbots launch in 2022. So the chatbots launch in 22. Launch is the verb that represents when it first started. According to a new study by a research center at Yale University. So here, notice here, when you use according, you need the preposition to, and it can be someone according to researchers, or it can be a something. So in this case, the something is a new study by a research center. So of course, there are people there, but they're not focusing on the people. They're just focusing on the place, a research center, and the location at Yale University. This study comes amid widespread concerns. What does amid mean? It means during or in the middle of. So the widespread concerns are in progress. It doesn't necessarily mean there's a start and end and this is the middle point, but it just means as the widespread concerns exist, the study happened. So amid widespread concerns. You might say, using our other word, upheaval, you might say she remained calm amid the upheaval caused by the pandemic or caused by the new policy, the new technology. So she stayed calm during, in the middle of, or as this upheaval was taking place. Using the word amid makes it sound more formal than using during, but you can simply replace it with during and it would be grammatically correct. The study comes amid widespread concerns. So adding widespread just means many people, many companies, many industries are experiencing these concerns. Widespread concerns that the proliferation of generative artificial intelligence. So of course, this is the acronym AI. Sometimes they'll first use the full form and then in the future, they'll just use the acronym. But nowadays, since it is so common, you'll just see AI without identifying what it is. And proliferation, this means the spread, the rapid spread of something. So in this case, the rapid spread of AI. Now, you see this a lot with negative things, the proliferation of diseases or a fire or a disaster, but the word itself is neutral. You can use it in just a neutral context, or you can use it in a positive way, but in a more neutral way, you might say the proliferation of online education has made it more accessible. I guess that does sound more positive than neutral, but you can use it in positive, neutral, or negative, but you will commonly hear it with more negative things that are spreading rapidly. Let's continue. The proliferation of generative AI, the technology that underpins ChatGPT. So in this case, the technology that runs ChatGPT. So here they're using underpins. You have to add this S because it's the present simple and the subject is technology, which is third person singular. So he, she, it, the technology that underpins. So it underpins. So in this case, is also generative AI. That's the technology. That's the singular subject. It underpins ChatGPT. Generative AI underpins ChatGPT. Let's review this example using underpin. So underpin, of course, is our verb. A strong command of grammar. So this is the something as a subject is third person singular. It, this, underpins. So that's why we have the S here. Underpins clear communication. So clear communication is possible because of a strong command of grammar. So this is what allows it to happen. It's the foundation of it. It's what makes it possible. A strong command of grammar underpins clear communication. So using the verb underpin also sounds more formal, and it will add variety to your speech as well. So the technology that underpins ChatGPT, of course, that technology was generative AI, could put many jobs at risk as US companies increasingly turn to AI to cut costs through greater automation. So here we have the modal verb could. This is important because it's a modal of possibility. So by reading this, oh, well, it could happen, but it also couldn't happen. So it's just a possibility here. It's not being stated as a fact. So this modal verb is important. And remember, you need the base verb after the modal verb. Could put many jobs at risk. So something puts something at risk. You could say the upheaval put my job at risk. So this means you may lose your job. You may not lose your job because it's just a risk. If something is at risk, it means there's the possibility to lose it, but it's just a possibility. So it doesn't mean it will happen. Let's review this sentence. The upheaval in the stock market. So you have the stock market, but then upheaval, complete disruption, so much change. Remember, just think of the pandemic. The upheaval in the stock market put my savings at risk. Now, put is a verb, so you need to conjugate it. That's why here we have it as the base verb. So how is it conjugated here? It's in the past simple, because if it were the present simple, what would it need? It would need the S, because the upheaval, this is a singular concept, third person singular. It puts my savings at risk. Savings, my savings, this represents the money I have in my bank account that I'm going to use in the future for a specific purpose. That's my savings. So in this case, it's the past simple. So remember, put is an irregular verb. The conjugations are put. I know it's in the past because it would be grammatically incorrect in the present simple because you would need that S. But grammatically or logically, you could put it in the present simple to describe it just as a factual situation. In the past simple, of course, it's a completed past action. In the present simple, you're just describing it as a fact. The upheaval in the stock market puts my savings at risk. That's a fact. So it could put many jobs at risk as US companies increasingly turn to AI. So here we have our phrasal verb to turn to, and you turn to something. In this case, the something is AI. You can turn to a someone as well. So I turn to my teacher for advice, for support. So if you turn to someone, you go to that person for a specific purpose. The specific purpose would be to receive support or guidance or help. Now, in this case, you go to a specific something, AI, for a specific purpose. And the specific purpose is to cut costs. So in this case, cut is not with scissors. Cut means to eliminate. So if you cut costs, let's say you have a cost for workers. You have 5 workers and that costs a certain amount of money. So if you cut it, you eliminate it. But if you eliminate that cost, well, then you also eliminate those 5 workers because there's no money to pay them. Cut costs through greater automation. So this is how you'll cut the costs, how you'll reduce the costs through greater automation. Let's keep going. Overall, our metrics indicate that the broader labor market has not experienced a discernible disruption. So here, notice there's quotation marks. So I know that these words are coming from someone's mouth. I'm going to assume it's those researchers at Yale because that's the topic and no other someone has been introduced. So I'm going to assume that this is from that research study even before I know. Overall, our metrics, so metrics, this is their measurements, their data. Our metrics indicate that the broader labor market, so remember we had a labor market, group of people employed. Now, broader means that they're not looking at the education labor market or the technology labor market. They're just looking at it in general or overall or more, so broader. Broader labor market has not experienced a discernible disruption. So disruption, that could be a replacement for the word upheaval. So a significant change. And discernible, you could replace this with the word measurable. So if it hasn't experienced a discernible disruption, which means if you look at the statistics of employment before and after ChatGPT, you don't see a big difference. If there were a discernible disruption, you would look at the statistics and you would say, wow, there's a big difference before and after ChatGPT. So you can think of it as measurable. A discernible disruption since ChatGPT's release. Remember before they used the word launch, you could use release because when something is released, it means it is officially available or it's the official start introduction. So that would be the same as the word launch. 33 months ago. 33 months ago. Undercutting fears that AI automation is currently eroding the demand for cognitive labor across the economy. So if AI automation, such as ChatGPT, is eroding demand, it means that it is reducing the demand. And if you can think of a rock that is eroding, so slowly but consistently, there's less and less of the rock. So that would be eroding demand. So you can think of it slowly but consistently. Let's come back to undercutting because we didn't review this. So here the verb is to undercut something. And this is conjugated in the gerund form. To undercut as a verb, it means to weaken or to reduce the effect of something. So here it's weakening the fears, it's reducing the effect of the fear. Because people had these fears that AI was going to steal their jobs. I'm sure the fear is still there. But then the data, the metrics show that there's no discernible change. There's no measurable or noticeable apparent change. So your fear is weakening. It's becoming less. So that's the undercutting. But something undercuts something. So it's the metrics undercut the fears. Let's review this example. Delays in the project. So here the sentence is starting with a noun and the noun is in the plural form just to represent all of them. So in general, delays in the project are undercutting. So it's in the present continuous because it's taking place now and we have delays, which is plural. They are undercutting the client's confidence. So in this case, it was a positive thing because you're reducing or weakening something negative. But in this case, you're reducing or weakening something positive, the client's confidence. So it doesn't sound very positive in this case. So that's the verb to undercut. Undercutting fears that AI automation is currently eroding, gradually reducing the demand for cognitive labor. So cognitive, that represents labor, so workers who are using their brain power rather than their muscular power. Cognitive labor across the economy. So across the economy, again, that doesn't mean just one area like education. It is all areas across the economy, the researchers wrote. So here now they're letting us know who is saying this, the researchers, which was obvious based on context because the only someone mentioned was the researchers. Let's continue. However, so now before I even read any further, I know there's going to be some sort of contrast. So here they were talking about there hasn't been job loss, there's no discernible disruption, fears are going down. So it sounded relatively positive, I would say. So now without reading anything more, I know that they're going to introduce a contrasting point. So a contrast to the positive aspects, now we're going to hear something negative. So how there may be job loss or there still may be cause for concern. So let's find out. However, they noted, it's always the last subject mentioned. So here we have the researchers, of course, plural. They noted. To note is a more formal way of saying they said or they claimed. However, they noted that the adoption of generative AI, so the adoption would be when you started using ChatGPT, you adopted it. So you started using it, but not just once, as a regular part of your routine. Then you can use here the noun form adoption. The verb would be adopt, and in this case, the adoption of. That the adoption of generative AI was at an early stage. So it's only been 33 months, which in the terms of how we've been working our entire lives or the entire length of a business, that's a short time. So they're saying it's at an early stage. And that their analysis, so their analysis represents the analysis of the researchers. Their analysis was not predictive of the future. Okay, was not predictive of. So if you're not familiar with a word, maybe you are, but assuming you're not, you can always try to think, does this look like a word that I am familiar with? Because you may be more familiar with the verb to predict the future. Well, predict is the verb form. I predict you're going to have an amazing future. And I truly do. So that is the verb form. But my prediction of the future. So that's a noun form, my prediction of the future. So I can say, you're going to have an amazing future. That's my prediction. That's my prediction. That's the noun form. So we have the verb form predict, the noun form prediction. What do you think this is? Well, you might also look at the broader use because we have our verb to be and then predictive. So when your verb is to be, then you could predict that this is the adjective form. And if you predicted that, you would be right. So this is the adjective form, predictive, was not predictive of the future. So they're saying that this information can't be used to say what will happen in the future. That maybe wasn't the purpose of the study, or they didn't measure enough, whatever the reason. So that was not predictive of the future. So now you know the adjective form, the verb form, and the noun form. You'll hear the adjective form more in formal writing academic writing, definitely in scientific or research based. In personal, everyday context, you'll most likely use the verb and the noun form. Their analysis was not predictive of the future. The researchers plan to monitor relevant data monthly to assess how AI's job impacts might change. So remember, this was our contrast with however. Let's continue. While the new study says AI isn't yet impacting the broader labor force, so again, adding yet here sounds more formal or academic. If you added it after force, while the new study says AI isn't impacting the broader labor force yet, that sounds more casual, everyday. There are a few specific examples of companies making big staffing decisions based on what they see as the technology's potential. So a staffing decision, of course, this comes from the word staff, so the people who work for a company. So staffing decisions represents decisions around who will work for a company. In recent years, some tech firms, including file storage service Dropbox and language learning app Duolingo, have cited AI as a reason for making layoffs. Okay, so here, layoffs, this is the noun form. The verb is make. So make layoffs. That's the collocation, which means these two go well together because you have a noun, a layoff, and then you need a verb to go with it. So you can make layoffs. Now, a layoff is when your boss tells you, I'm sorry, you don't have a job anymore. But it's not because you're a bad worker. It's not because you did anything wrong. It's because we don't have a need for you anymore. There's no position. Your position doesn't exist. Or we have a need for you, but we don't have any money to pay you. And I assume you're not volunteering, so we have to lay you off. So a layoff is very important because it's not because of you, your skills, your behavior. It's because of the company, their resources, or their need for the position. Now remember, this is the noun form. It's also very commonly used in the phrasal verb form. So the verb form is to lay off, and you lay someone off. So you can just use the word people. You could also use employees, because if you lay someone off, they have to be working for you. So you could use employees, workers as well, but people is just a general sense. Now, because I have a preposition, I need my verb in ing. So if you want to use the noun form, you still have to make sure it's grammatically correct. So have cited AI as a reason for laying people off. So the phrasal verb is to lay off, and you lay someone off, for laying people off. Now this is the noun form for making layoffs. A survey in January showed a large number of employers globally plan to downsize their workforce. So to downsize means to reduce the number of. And reduce the number of, reduce the size of as well. And how do you do that? Well, one way is by laying people off, by making layoffs. A large share of. So they didn't specify how many. Is it 90%, 60%? We don't know. A large share of employers globally plan to downsize their workforce as AI carries out some tasks. So carries out some tasks just means completes or does some tasks. Now, this is just a survey. So again, maybe this isn't predictive of the reality because this is just someone answering a response in a survey. Now, with downsize, yes, you can reduce the number of workers in your company. As as parents get older, their children leave and they have this big house, but they no longer have kids in the house, they often downsize, which means they move into a smaller house. They may even move into a condo, a smaller condo or apartment, because it's easier to maintain than a full house. So it's very common to hear people approaching retirement or past retirement talking about downsizing. So they're going to reduce the size of their house. They may even reduce how many possessions they have. They might get rid of one of their cars, so they only have one car instead of two, get rid of all the toys that were there for their kids, things like that. So it's very common to use the word downsize in that context to refer to your daily life. Here's a common sentence. My parents are downsizing. So are downsizing, they're doing it now. So I'm selling a bunch of their stuff for them. Now, if I just say to my friend, my parents are downsizing, based on context, based on the age of my parents, they would assume, the person I'm talking to would assume that my parents are reducing the size of their house or the number of their possessions. So I'm selling a bunch of their stuff for them. Just very casual native speech. Let's keep going. But the limits of AI are becoming increasingly clear, as is the extra work it can potentially create as humans have to check the work produced by AI. So the article ends with, again, a contrast, this time using a more casual word, but is still used to introduce a contrasting point. So what's the contrast? Here, we're just talking about a large number of employers are talking about downsizing. They identified companies that are currently downsizing. And now the contrast is to that point. But the limits of AI, so now they're talking about some of the negatives, but the limits of AI are becoming increasingly clear, as is the extra work it can potentially create. So potentially is important because it means it may happen, but it may not happen. Can potentially create as humans have to check the work produced by AI. So in this case, check means to verify, just like you might say, hey, Jennifer, can you check this sentence? Can you verify the correctness or accuracy of this sentence? Check the work produced by AI. And that is the end of the article. So now I'll read the article from start to finish and you can focus on my pronunciation. AI is not yet replacing workers in the US, researchers find. ChatGPT is not yet causing the massive upheaval in the US labor market that many have feared since the chatbot's launch in 2022, according to a new study by a research center at Yale University. The study comes amid widespread concerns that the proliferation of generative artificial intelligence, the technology that underpins ChatGPT, could put many jobs at risk as U.S. companies increasingly turn to AI to cut costs through greater automation. Overall, our metrics indicate that the broader labor market has not experienced a discernible disruption since ChatGPT's release 33 months ago, undercutting fears that AI automation is currently eroding the demand for cognitive labor across the economy, the researchers wrote. However, they noted that the adoption of generative AI was at an early stage and that their analysis was not predictive of the future. The researchers plan to monitor relevant data monthly to assess how AI's job impacts might change. While the new study says AI isn't yet impacting the broader labor force, there are a few specific examples of companies making big staffing decisions based on what they see as the technology's potential. In recent years, some tech firms, including file storage service Dropbox and language learning app Duolingo, have cited AI as a reason for making layoffs. A survey in January showed a large share of employers globally plan to downsize their workforce as AI carries out some tasks. But the limits of AI are becoming increasingly clear, as is the extra work it can potentially create as humans have to check the work produced by AI. Do you want to keep learning English with the news? If you do, put let's go, put let's go in the comments. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And here's another lesson I know you'll love. Watch it now.